Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Juxtaposition channel. Today's video will be entitled "The Hillside Stranglers, Murder Most Foul." And of course, talking about Hollywood, California. That's what I'm talking about. That's Griffith Park. There's a Griffith Park Observatory. There's a grid of 5G equipment directly above this sign. There is the Griffith Observatory to the right of this sign atop the Griffith Park Hill. There's an obelisk up there too. So above the Hollywood sign stands an obelisk, a chain of command representing Swiss Bank Authority over the Hunger Game colony known as Alta California. All right. So normally, if on my channel, if you're familiar with the Murder Most Foul series that I presented well over 100 homicide felony crimes on my channel in the last 4 years, well over 100. And what I want to tell you is typically I focus on gladio murders, which are professional military assassinations paid for by professional soldiers using all manner of weapons and techniques, from throwing people off balconies whilst they're breaking cookies to drowning them in duck ponds, or more importantly, garroting them and strangulating them, then suspending them from a barn and calling it Mary Richardson, the second of three wives of Robert Kennedy Jr., or the husband of Aubrey Plaza was garroted and then displayed in her backyard off of Los Feliz Boulevard. And Los Feliz Boulevard is directly below this sign, the Hollywood sign. This is home to Joan Didion, home to Ronald Reagan, home to Charlie Manson, home to Charlie Watson, home to Lotsa Papa, Bernard Crowe, home to the death, the murder, suicide of Janis Joplin. This is home to the murder of Lino and Rosemary LaBianca, who lived directly below this sign in the Walt Disney Mansion on Woking Way, 4053 Woking Way. Check it out, Google it. They were murdered at his mother's home, Mother Karina's home on Waverly Drive at 3300 Waverly Drive. Don't look for that number. It's been changed now. That's a different number. I think it's 3310 today. Anyway, what you should know is that this is where Heidi Fleiss grew up, right below this sign. This is where Amy Harwick was murdered. This is where Thomas Albert Decker was garroted in his bathtub with a red ball gag in his mouth, with his hands handcuffed behind his head, and the coroner said it was a suicide in his bathtub, really, with a dog leash attached to a shower curtain. Below this sign, near Los Feliz Boulevard, where Jack Black lives, where the Red Hot Chili Peppers lived. I think you're getting the picture. Where Brad Pitt lives, Angelina Jolie, etc., etc., etc. This is housing for Hollywood off Los Feliz Boulevard. So, of course, why shouldn't it also be the eye of the devil for Angelo Bonio and his cousin, Kenny Bianchi, to murder at least 10 young women, possibly 13, possibly 12, as a team, the two of them together. Now, privately, it appears that Ken Bianchi killed two up in Bellingham, Washington by himself alone, which was sloppily done, and he got caught within 72 hours of those murders. He was arrested. And perhaps three murders in Rochester, New York, which is where these two knuckleheads were born and raised. Initially, was Rochester, New York. Anthony Bonio was an adopted child with loads of problems. As an adopted child, he was continuously dropping out of school and being involved with theft, robbery, burglary, bullying young girls from a young age. And he had a lot of lack of parental supervision problems. And so too with Ken Bianchi, who was, I think, turned over from his mother to adoption at age 4, because he had an unstable childhood also. So I think Angelo Bono never knew his birth parents, whereas Ken Bianchi did, but was rejected by his mother. So these two these two time bombs were just simmering for decades before they launched and teamed up in 1977 through 1978, where they killed officially 10 women. 10. 10 is the number. 10, 10 is the number we're going with for today's video. But, that's not necessarily the full body of their work. Initially, these two started in prostitution as pimps, pimping young girls out and holding them kind of under control, grid, kidnapping, rape, and psychological terror. But then, did let them work Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood as prostitutes. So that was how it began. It didn't begin with murder. It began with prostitution and pimping. All right. So where does it all begin? Well, I guess it begins first with Angelo Bono's adopted family moving from Rochester out to the Glendale, North Los Angeles, north of city of Los Angeles, north of Hollywood sign, north of the sign to the east near Pasadena lies the town of Glendale. And below Glendale, you have Highland Park area. And then to the east of that, you have very expensive areas of Pasadena and San Marino. And but that's not where the Buños moved. They moved into a kind of middle class, lower middle class area near industrial warehousing and businesses in a business district off of important East Colorado Boulevard, as opposed to the little old lady from Pasadena. She raced her car down West Colorado Boulevard, which is where the Pasadena Art Academy and School is located. This is a more expensive upscale area part of Colorado Boulevard. But they were in more of the dumpy side, close to the Imperial Highway 5 and in business traffic. All right, so that would have begun 4 years after the birth of Angelo Buño, and he was born in 1934, I believe. And that is, let's see, let me just confirm that for you. Angelo Buño was born October 5th, 1934. And so 1938, before World War II, his family moved out to Los Angeles County, to Glendale, with young Anthony in tow. His full name is Angelo Anthony Buño Jr., but he is an adopted child. And through his adopted parents, he was acquainted with Kenneth Bianchi, being a young child back in Rochester. And I don't know if the families got together, but basically, Bianchis were in Rochester, where Angelo was, but Angelo moved out to California, so he's really a California kid from age 5. And like I said, he was always getting in trouble throughout his childhood. And as a teenager, he committed many crimes, mostly petty theft. And he was in a couple of, groups, you could call them miniature gangs, all the way through his teenage years. He did exhibit sexual violence toward women ever since he was a young teenager. And of course, that carried on until he was arrested eventually for the murder and charged and convicted for 10 murders of young women in Los Angeles County. Now, these are not Gladio murders, and the reason that they're not Gladio murders is just look at the victims. Look at the victims. That's how you can tell if it's a Gladio murder. So if it's John Kennedy and he's the president of the United States and he gets shot once in the voice box and another time in his right eyeball, that's going to be Gladio murder, right? That's a military assassin, 100% professional, 100% perfect. And he's the president of the United States, which is one of the largest Swiss banking colonies in the world. So that's professional. Now, in this case, you're talking about 10 young women who ranged from age 12. There were two 12-year-old little girls who went to a Jesuit St. Ignatius Catholic parochial school. They were both kidnapped, raped, and garroted. That's what we call strangulation. They used a ligature, so then it's a garrote. If you strangle someone using a ligature, it's a garrote. And so just letting you know, it's a factoid for the juxtaposition. All my paid members know that when you use a ligature to strangulate someone, you're using a military technique called garrote. All right. But I'm not calling this a military crime. Neither Anthony Bonio, Angelo Anthony Bonio, or Kenny Bianchi was military trained. So these two guys are just amateurs. They're amateurs who are fairly successful at doing something that they did for over 2 years. They went 2 years without being caught. So it's somewhat professional, and really they should never have been caught. They only got caught because Kenny Bianchi made a lot of mistakes by himself alone. If he had just suspended his murdering of women or went back and teamed up with his cousin, they never would have been caught. The Los Angeles police and Los Angeles County Sheriff were at no time ever hot on the trail of these two, even though they're driving their cars right by them all the time. Angelo Bonio and Ken Bianchi not only hid in plain view, Ken Bianchi went on ride-alongs with the Los Angeles Police Department, kind of like Adam 12 and Martin Milner. He's sitting in the back seat while they talk about, hey, you guys making progress on the Hillside Strangler case? Ken Bianchi went on ride-alongs with the Los Angeles Police Department in between murdering the girls that the police were supposedly trying to find the killers of. And there's Ken Bianchi going on rides. He's sitting in the back seat of the police car. So I think I speak with some credibility when I say the police were clueless with respect to getting close to catching the killers of the Hillside Strangler. You might want to look at who's sitting in the back seat of your squad car before you start knocking on doors, right? Okay. There are similarities with the Zodiac killings and the Hillside Strangler killings, but I think it's really kind of a coincidence. Number one is that you kidnap someone, then you rape someone in a private place, in a different place than where you kidnapped them from, and then you garrote them and kill them, and then you transport their dead body to a third location. So you have a minimum of three locations where you kidnapped the woman, where you drove her to rape her in private, and then body disposal post mortem. This is always going to involve three places. Now, the way the police work is they only get involved when a dead body is discovered. So, whichever part of the county that is going to be covered either by the sheriff's department or the Los Angeles Police Department, right? It's a city metropolitan police. And in these 10 cases, about half of them, the bodies were dumped within the city limits of Los Angeles. And in half the cases, they were dumped in an unincorporated area of Los Angeles or in a city in the San Fernando Valley that is not part of the metropolitan Los Angeles. That they're in the town of Glendale, for example, or Highland Park would be handled by the sheriff's department. By the way, West Hollywood was handled by the sheriff's department. Parts of West Hollywood are covered by LAPD, but most of it's covered by the sheriff deputies. Now, you should also know that's the situation with the Zodiac killers, which involve Solano County and Napa County and San Francisco County and the city of Vallejo and the city of Napa and the city of San Francisco. So you have three different city police detectives and three different sheriff's homicide detectives. That's 6 detectives looking into the Zodiac killing. Do you think they all got together and had a task force meeting or coordinated their reports and share information? No, they never did. That's also true with the Hillside Strangler until they formed what they call their task force, which combined forces of the city police and the county sheriff. But they certainly, the sheriff and the city police are not in the habit of working together, and they're wary of each other. And of course, everybody wants to get credit for solving the crime. like Lieutenant Chief Inspector Dreyfus or Inspector Clouseau to solve the crime. Everybody wants to get their props for being, a good sleuth. So there's a lot of competition going on. There's also a lot of pressure going on. Now, the media promoted a number of falsehoods in all cases presented by Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite chimed in on the Zodiac killings. Walter Cronkite presented the Sharon Tate murders. He chimed in on the Manson family trials, which there is no Manson family. So, and Walter Cronkite also on CBS Evening News, he chimed in on the Hillside Strangler case also. So, in the case of Gladio murders, they're typically presented on national news, and this case was as well. It's just that this case is not a military murder. It's just two cousins who were basically pimps who decided to get into the rape and murder business. But it's not profitable. They didn't make any money doing it. It's a hobby. Okay, you see, it's completely different than a Gladio murder where everyone gets paid. Every person who participates, even if you just dispose of the murder weapons or you dispose of the dirty clothes or you clean up the scene or you position or stage the body or the lighting or you move things around so it's different than how it was. Every person in logistics, every person in laundry, every person in transportation, every person in the actual killing of people gets paid. Everybody gets paid. In this case, um, Angelo Bugno, who was 40 years old, and his 24-year-old cousin Kenny, they're killing young women, aged 12 to 28. But most of the victims were in their teenagers and early 20s, like not older than 22 years old. So the outliers are the 12-year-olds. There were two 12-year-olds and one 28-year-olds. But the rest of the victims were between age 15 and 22, most of whom were 20 or 17, 18, 19, 20 were the ages of the victims. Let me give you the names of the victims. Yolanda Washington, age 19. She's the only Black victim of the 10. Remember, there's more women, but they weren't officially used to charge Kenny or Angela Buna. Yeah, Yolanda Washington, age 19. Yes, she's a mommy of a young daughter, and she's acting as a prostitute working on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood. She works out of a strip club. She's not a dancer, but she performs sex acts for the customers to come in to watch the dancers. You should know that the strip club is located near Sunset Sunset Sound Studios, where Janis Joplin last recorded her voice at that studio on a Friday on October 3rd, 1970. October 4th, 1970 was when Janis Joplin was found dead of a so-called speedball heroin overdose on Franklin Avenue. Okay. But just a few hours before she died, she was recording on Sunset Boulevard, walking distance from where Yolanda Washington, who at that time she was only 12 years old. So Yolanda wasn't working as a prostitute when Janis Joplin died. But I just want you to know that this is the neighborhood that Charlie Manson lived. This is the neighborhood that Joan Didion lived, within a mile of here, Joan Didion. And she wrote about the life in West Hollywood, but she glossed over a lot of the actual facts of the neighborhood that Joan Didion herself lived in. And I don't think she ever told anyone that Charlie Manson lived down the street from her. He's working for the same people she is, right? Well, anyway, Yolanda Washington was doing prostitution work out of a strip club on Sunset Boulevard, West Hollywood, in October 1977, which is 7 years after Janis Joplin had died. It's exactly 7 years. And like I said, Yolanda Washington would have been 12 years old when Janis Joplin died. Anyway, it's a little factoid there. Now, did the media wanted to promote that it was mostly prostitutes killed? That's not true. Only 3 of the 10 were prostitutes, and only Yolanda Washington, who's got a child, she was more full time. The others were waitresses and did part time prostitution. And the other ones were 15 and 17 years old. So one worked for an escort service. So the prostitutes that the media tells you about, one was 15 years old, one was 17 years old, and Yolanda Washington was 19 years old. Okay, so these are not, like really professional prostitutes. They're just young teenagers. They're all teenagers trying to get some cash. All right, so you should know that both Ken Bianchi and Angelo Bono knew Yolanda Washington and many other prostitutes who worked Hollywood Boulevard and Sunset Boulevard. They knew dozens of prostitutes. Why? Because the first year that Kenny Bianchi and Angelo Buono came together, in case you didn't know, they Kenny moved out from Rochester, Washington, in January 1976, and he immediately moved in with Angelo Buono in his home, and his home is on East Colorado Boulevard at 703. You can Google that, 703 East Colorado Boulevard. Now, the home that Kenny Bianchi lived in, two-bedroom home with Angelo Bono, that home's been torn down. But otherwise, the property is exactly how it was. There's a garage in the back. Bono ran an automobile reupholster business, reupholstering your seats or dashboard in your car. That's behind, it's set back from Colorado Boulevard. The home was right off the sidewalk on Colorado Boulevard in Glendale. The property had a fence all around it, so hobos can't just walk up to the door, which explains how you can rape or torture women in your home, because you don't have any Mormon LDS missionaries coming in, and you don't have the mailmen coming in, because typically the raping was going on after midnight until the wee hours of the morning. So into the wee hours of the morning. So the mail is not being delivered. There's no UPS drivers coming by. There's no LDS missionaries. There's no solicitors going on, because it's being done between midnight and 7 in the morning. That's when the crimes are being committed at Angelo's home at 703 East Colorado Boulevard. Now, you should know, if you just go down, if you go west from that address, 703 East Colorado Boulevard, if you go west a couple blocks, you're going to come to Glendale Boulevard. If you turn left, that will take you directly down eventually to the Imperial Highway 5. It will take you to Los Feliz Boulevard. It will take you past where Lino LaBianca was killed. It will take you where Lino had multiple rental homes on Glendale Boulevard, and Charlie Manson used to live there. If you keep going on it, you'll be at Hyperion, where the Disney brothers, Roy and Walt Disney, they had a studios just a couple blocks from Glendale Boulevard on Hesperian. They technically were on a side street. And if you keep going, that's Silver Lake District where the Disney studios were. And Glendale Boulevard will take you to Silver Lake District of Los Angeles. The next district is Echo Park. And then the next stop is Dodger Stadium, Chavez Ravine. And that'll take you a looking distance at the Los Angeles Police Department Parker Center. And it won't take you exactly to the driveway of the Los Angeles Police, but it'll take you within 1 mile of the Parker Center. And it runs north-south. And to get to the police station, you have to go about a mile past not even a mile, half a mile from the Dodger Stadium, Chavez Ravine. Maybe it's under a mile, kilometer distance, but to the west. You see what I'm saying? And virtually all the victims who were killed, like 9 out of 10 anyway, were at some point driven on Glendale Boulevard, because it goes north-south and you don't have to get on the freeway. And it's a little closer when you get to Colorado Boulevard. You're only a couple blocks from Angelo Bono's house. So it turns out, when you look at it in retrospect, like I'm doing, you'll find that it's actually really simple what they were doing. And of their 10 victims, they knew at least 5 of the 10 really well. In other words, they're not going down to West Hollywood and picking up random strangers. They're picking up 3 of the women actually lived in the apartment complex or across the street from the apartment that Kenny Bianchi eventually got his own apartment. Um, he was with Angelo Bono for 2 years. He lived with Bono for at least 1 full year, and then he got his own apartment. And then he would identify prospective victims um, they wanted to pimp and prostitute, and then he would talk to his cousin Angelo, who's older. Angelo's 40 and Kenny Bianchi is 24. And when by the time they both started killing people, then Kenny Bianchi was 25 years old and his cousin Angelo was 41 years old. That's when they began killing. But the first victim was Yolanda Washington. Now, she and another prostitute friend of hers had offered to sell a trick book to Angelo Bono, which is, since they're pimps and they're looking for Johns to call and book prostitution appointments with. They wanted to be booking agents for prostitutes. They had asked Yolanda, "Do you have a list of clients, because you're not available all the time, and we'd like to offer prostitutes to your customers." And Yolanda's friend, it was really Yolanda's friend, who said, "Yeah, we have a book, and we'll sell it to you for $500." And I guess Angelo Bono paid Yolanda Washington's friend cash money for a book. Turns out they were all made up names and the numbers were not correct. And Angelo was pretty angry about that. He wanted his money back. And he went after those 2 girls down there on Sunset Boulevard with Kenny Bianchi driving and Angelo in the passenger seat. They also have police badges. Both of them carry police badges. Kenny Bianchi's 6'2", Angelo Bono is 5'11". He's the Italian stallion, but he's a little shorter. The other guy is the mustachioed Kenny Bianchi, who also has a psychologist certificate that he likes to hang in temporary offices and actually books appointment. Unlike Dr. Phil, unlike Dr. Drew, unlike Dr. Oz, okay, Kenny Bianchi actually books appointments with psychology clients and talks about their problems. He sees patients and he's not licensed. But you know what? Dr. Phil's not licensed either. He's got a TV show, right? He's a TV doctor. Dr. Drew, Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, they're fake doctors, right? They're fake. Kenny Bianchi was a fake. Kenny Bianchi's fake, but he actually saw patients. There's a big difference. He's not on TV. So there's not a lot, like more than a centimeter's worth of difference between Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, Dr. Drew, and Ken Bianchi. They're all masquerading like doctors, like Dr. Fauci is, like Dr. Victor Hansen is, like Dr. Jeffrey Sachs is. They're all charlatans. You get what I'm saying here? They're charlatans. They misrepresent their actual skill set. They don't see patients. But in the case of Kenny Bianchi, he actually did see patients and charged money. All right. So anyway, Ken Bianchi is only 25 years old, but he's meeting a lot of people. He's charming. He's tall. He's handsome. He's disarming, and he also joins a acting school in Encino. Now there are dozens of acting schools in Encino. There was one that offered a 3-hour class on Mondays that was very popular. And everywhere that Ken Bianchi went, he's making observations about attractive women that he'd like to kidnap. He's always making notes, and he goes back to Angelo, talks about women who he's met, and he asks lots of questions. Where do you live? Are you part of the class? He sees them on a regular basis. He builds up rapport with them because he doesn't, rape and kidnap them on the first date. He typically spends, 6 months grooming these women. And Ken Bianchi spent 6 months to a year grooming dozens of women, but they killed about 6 that he had previously scouted and knew where they lived, and he knew where they went to school, and he knew where they worked, and he knew that if they were in an acting school or not. In the case of Yolanda Washington, she was sort of just the second or the third wheel. It's the other prostitutes, the one that was put the trick book together, the trick book of John's. But she wasn't working that night. So when Ken Bianchi and Angela Bono drove down to Sunset Boulevard, they found Yolanda Washington, offered her a ride home. She got in. They drove her the wrong direction from where she lives. They took her back to Buño's home at 703 East Colorado Boulevard, whereupon, they tied her ankles and her wrists to a chair, and then they tormented her. Then they untied her and raped her. Both of them raped her, and then they put a garrote around her neck and strangulated her, and they dumped her body in Los Angeles County. Wanda Washington, age 19, never made it home to her baby daughter. Okay, what date was that? I can't tell you because the police don't know. Only Angelo Bono knows, and he's dead now. And Kenny Bianchi may not even remember. But Yolanda Washington's body was discovered in a state of decomposition on October 18th, 1977. So if you want to try to figure out where the beginning of the story is, I'm telling you the story at least began when Ken Bianchi moved out to Los Angeles, which would be January 1976. But nobody actually officially got killed until October 1977, which is, almost 2 years later. It's 18 months later. Now, we did have some couple girls that could have been victims. One in Griffith Park was found in Griffith Park, dead in September 1977. And then another woman, Jill Barkham, age 18, she was found dumped in a ravine off Mulholland Drive, which is in close proximity to this Hollywood sign. So they could have done those, but they were never charged with those. And that was in September and November 1977, which is before Laura Collins, age 26, was murdered and dumped before Yolanda Washington was. But officially, based on the indictments, Yolanda Washington was the first victim of the Hillside Stranglers. I'm pretty sure she wasn't, but for purposes of tonight's video, she's going to be the first of 10 women. All right. So then, it's been 18 months of preparation and planning. Both Ken Bianchi and Angelo invited two teenage runaways to live with them in this two-bedroom home, and sort of kept them, you could say, it was a pseudo kidnapping of these two women for 3 months. But it wasn't a total kidnapping because they did let the girls go out and go shopping and work as prostitutes down there on Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard. So the girls had many opportunities to escape Angela Bono, who at that point hadn't killed anyone. So they're not murderers, they're just pimps. And like I said, that operation went on for over a year, more than 1 year. And those girls eventually did run away separately. One was prostituted to an attorney who then helped her escape. And then the other one fled when she heard that the other one fled. And neither Ken Bianchi nor Angelo, tracked them down or killed them. So those two girls, which is Sabrina Hannon and Becky Spars, they have no parents. They're orphan kids. They're runaways. And they lived with Ken Bianchi and Angela Bono in a really small house in Glendale for 90 days. They did turn over their prostitution money to them in exchange for food and housing because they were living in creek beds. And they both escaped, and they didn't get killed. All right. So I just want to set the tone that, the media is telling you these guys are, like you just look at them and you're going to die. That's not true. Not true at all. And they spent a good 18 months together without murdering a single person. For at least 18 months, they were in the prostitution business with Kenny pretending to be a psychologist and eventually getting his own apartment and dating and, identifying women. And again, nobody died. So it went almost 2 years before the first murder, who happened to be a business dispute. Yolanda Washington wasn't killed to be raped. She was killed as retribution for the fraudulent collection of $500 for a book that was fake on the prostitution Johns. You see what I'm saying? That's how it began. It began, and that murder could have happened at the end of September 1977. We don't know because we don't know where. I don't know what date Yolanda Washington went missing, but I'm guessing at least a week to 2 weeks before her body was found, which was October 18th, 1977. That's when we kick it off. The second victim is Judith Miller. Um, she is a teenage runaway also. She does have parents who live in West Hollywood. She was living with her biological mother and a stepfather, but she had a habit of disappearing for several weeks and then reappearing and disappearing. She worked as a part-time prostitute. She was a student at Hollywood High School, where she came and went from Hollywood High School. She only weighed 90 pounds. Her actual legal name is Judith Lynn Miller. She didn't go by that. That took the police department almost 6 months to figure out who the heck she was and to find her mother and stepfather, which they did find them eventually, but not right away. So Judith Miller was actually dumped on the front lawn of a person's home in San Fernando Valley, which is in a completely different zip code than Hollywood High School. Hollywood High School, just so you know, is not far from where Yolanda Washington worked over on Sunset Boulevard. I believe that Hollywood High School is actually on Sunset Boulevard. So the roads that you really need to know to define Hollywood is Los Feliz, Franklin Avenue, um, um, Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, Vine Street, North Highlands, Laurel Canyon, and there's some other key streets to know. But if you just got by with the streets I just mentioned to you, Los Feliz, Franklin Avenue, Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, North Highlands, and Vine Street, you could navigate around 50, 60 murders happen or victims were identified within that area where Yolanda Washington worked and was kidnapped from, and where Janis Joplin recorded her last soundtrack before she was done away with a heroin overdose. Anyway, so Judith Miller was second. Her body was discovered really right after, a few hours after it was dumped, when the sun came up and the homeowner came out and saw a dead little girl on his front lawn. That was November 1st, 1977. Third victim was Alyssa Teresa Caston. She's 21 years old. She worked as a waitress, and she was kidnapped from West Hollywood. Don't know what date, but her body was found nude. All the bodies are found naked, not a stitch of clothing on any of these girls. And she was found on November 6th, 1977. That's only 5 days after Judith Lynn Miller was found, but it was more than 5 days between murders. It's just that we don't know how many days the girls were dead before they were found. So it's even possible that Alyssa Teresa was killed before Judith Miller. But Judith Miller is put down as the second murder because she was the second body discovered. Then we have Dolores Cepeda, age 12, and Sonia Johnson, age 12. They were last seen alive getting off a bus near Dodger Stadium, where they were coming home from school at a Catholic parochial St. Ignatius Jesuit school. They're 12 years old. They're in seventh grade. They were assumed to be kidnapped by Ken Bianchi and Anthony Bono. Then their bodies were found on November 13th, 1977. You see a bang, bang, bang real quick. Judith Miller, Alyssa Teresa Caston, Dolores Cepeda, Sonia Johnson. That's four naked women or girls discovered, within 13 days. In 13 days, I got four dead naked women in 13 days. All right. Then the next one we got is Christina Weckler. She's 20 years old. She's a student of the Pasadena Art Center College of Design. My cousin went to that school. He went to UCLA and then he went to this art center, College of Design, which I believe is on Colorado Boulevard in the west side of Pasadena. Christina Weckler, age 20, she is a straight up person. She's not a prostitute at all, and just an art student. Her naked body was found November 20th, 1977. Then we have Evelyn Jane King. She's 28 years old. Her dead body was discovered on November 23rd, 1977. Now, she had been reported missing on November 9th, 1977. Last seen live at the Church of Scientology on Franklin Avenue. You do know that the Church of Scientology is structured like almost identically to the LDS Mormon Church. Uh, and not that different than the Catholic Church either. The Church of Scientology, brought to you by L. Ron Hubbard, an officer in the United States Navy during World War II. L. Ron Hubbard spent 10 years with the Navy. This is what L. Ron Hubbard looks like. He became a submariner with the Church of Scientology, which he founded. He was a science fiction novelist after he was an officer for 5 years during World War II. Before and during World War II, he was an officer in the United States Navy intelligence. Then he went in 5 years of reserve for the Navy, and it turns out that there was a Hollywood actor who I'll give you his name in a moment, and there was a Hollywood actor who was in combat and Paint Your Wagon, and he was a Mormon, and he retired to being an actor in 1967, and in 1969 he purchased this mansion, this French chateau mansion, which is at this mansion is on Franklin Avenue, and it's on. I got the address right here too. 5930 Franklin Avenue, and this is where the sixth victim, Christina Weckler, scratch that, Evelyn Jane King. She goes by Jane King, but her birth name is Evelyn King. She was attending an auditing class here for the Church of Scientology. This is called their Celebrity Center. It's where John Travolta and Tom Cruise comes. This has a restaurant. It used to be open to the public. It's now private and closed. You can get a public tour of this place. This building has been here since the at least 1930s, I think. And it's right at the corner of the Hollywood Freeway, Highway 101, and Franklin Avenue, which is close to Los Feliz Avenue. And Franklin Avenue and Los Feliz is where Joan Didion lived. And so this is close to where Joan Didion lived. This is kind of the beginning of the West Hollywood area. This is at the Hollywood Freeway and at Franklin Avenue, which is only 1 block from Los Feliz. This is where the Black Dahlia was murdered in a home walking distance from here. But this is where Evelyn Jane King, age 28, an aspiring actress who knew Kenny Bianchi because she was in our acting class with him in Encino, which is in a completely different part of Los Angeles, in San Fernando Valley. It's about a half an hour drive from here is where she met Kenny Bianchi. But she was kidnapped by Kenny Bianchi and Angelo Bono right in front of this building at the bus stop. That's why she got in the car, because she knew Kenny Bianchi, and she'd been going to the acting class with him for over 6 months. So she thought she knew him, even though she had been warned by other people in that class that he was kind of fraudulent because he told people in the class that he worked for Paramount Pictures, and that was a lie. He carried around some Paramount Pictures notepad, but he was never an employee of Paramount Pictures. So some of the people, they didn't think that Kenny Bianchi was acting creepy at all. Never, no one ever said that he was a creep. They just said that he was a charlatan because he was telling people that he's associated with Paramount Pictures, and there were people that knew he was not. So they thought he was a liar, and they told Jane King, do not spend time with him. And then of course she got in their car, and then she was taken back to Colorado Boulevard, where she was raped, aggressively raped, and then strangulated and then dumped. And of all the places they dump her right off of Glendale Boulevard, like I told you, but at the Los Feliz exit of the Imperial Highway. This is where the William Mulholland water fountain is. And this is looking, you can see from Lino LaBianca's mother's house, Karina. If you look at her backyard, you'd be able to see where Jane King's naked body was dumped. You could see both Los Feliz Drive exit for the freeway. You could see the William Mulholland fountain, and you could see the dead body. Well, they put her in the bushes, so you wouldn't be able to see the body per se, but you'd see where she was dumped right near Los Feliz Boulevard. And talk about convenient. In other words, it's probably 12-minute drive to go from Angelo Buono's, upholstery business. I think we could do it in 12 to 15 minutes. Just drive there with the dead body in the trunk. And then we don't even have to get on the freeway to do what they did. But it would be probably better to get on Highway 5 and then exit at Los Feliz and get all the way down to Los Feliz, hit the brakes. There is a turnout, and you could park and then quickly dump the body in the bushes there and jump on the freeway and drive back to Glendale to the upholstery store, which I said can be done in 12 minutes. All right, so this goes to my point. Just like Zodiac, just like the Hillside Strangler, we have the murderers operating within 15 minutes of the murder. They murder them in Glendale, and then they dump them within 15, 20 minutes of that place in our 360-degree circle. But here they kidnapped Jane King from here. Then they took her away, raped and murdered her. Then they drove her back to within a mile of this. They didn't go all the way down Los Feliz to Franklin Avenue. This is on Franklin Avenue at the end of Los Feliz. They didn't drive the whole distance, which is probably 2-mile drive. They dumped her at the Imperial State Highway exit in the bushes. And it took every bit of 2 weeks before she was found. To tell you the truth, it's a miracle they found her body, because while thousands of cars every day go past her dead body, nobody stops where her body was. Nobody stops there. They're getting ready to slow down to a stop sign, but no one. Have you ever done that where you see a stop sign and then you think, well, I should hit the brakes early and stop and see if there's any dead women? I mean, nobody does that, right? Like, if you don't see a body in the bushes, why would you stop? And she was fairly well hidden. Nevertheless, she's victim number 6, but in terms of sequence, it's not clear that she was the 5th or the 4th or the 7th victim. Then we have Lauren Wagner, who's only 18 years old. She's living with her parents in San Fernando Valley, and they spot her. She's a student. Obviously, she's high school going to junior college at the San Fernando, Los Angeles Community College. And her dead body is found on November 29th, 1977. Then we have Kim Martin, age 17. She's a call girl for an escort service. You call a number. And Ken Bianchi made the call from the Hollywood library, public library. And he said to the outcall agency to meet at an apartment not far from the library. But it was a vacant unit. No one lives there. And so they lied in wait until Kim Martin came by herself. She didn't have a driver. She was dropped off and the driver left even her alone. She didn't have a partner. And then they kidnapped her because they didn't have the keys to that apartment anyway. They knew it was vacant, but they just wanted her to go there. Then they kidnapped her when she arrived on the outcall agency booking. All right. She's 17 years old. And then her body was found. I didn't write the date down on that. In December 1977. It was in December 1977, before Christmas, that her body was found. Then the last victim of the Hillside Strangler case in Los Angeles County is Cindy Lee Hutzpah. She's 20 years old. Again, she's a part-time waitress and she's a full-time student, and she's living with her parents, and she drives to 703 East Colorado Boulevard because she needs upholstery work done in her Toyota car. And she is meeting with Angelo Bono, who's 41 years old. She's only 20, and she has a tear in her seat, and he's working on an estimate with her. And it just turns out that Ken Bianchi, who now has his own apartment, he just randomly shows up at Angelo Bono's shop, sees he's talking to this attractive young woman, age 20, Cindy Hudspeth, spelled Hudspeth. And he says, "Could I have a word with you, Angelo?" And they have a private meeting where they decide, hey, let's just kill her. Let's do the usual routine in the house. Let's rape her and strangulate her. So instead of giving an estimate to Cindy, they rape her and murder her. Then they place her naked body in the trunk of her own car. Then I guess Angelo drives the car, and Ken drives his car, and they drive up to the Los Angeles Crest Highway, which is kind of an old abandoned highway above Pasadena, above Flint Ridge and La Cañada, and they find a dirt road and drive Cindy's car down the dirt road and just park the car. And then Angelo gets in Ken Bianchi's car, and they drive back to the shop on Colorado Boulevard. So they didn't display Cindy. They didn't take her out of the trunk and put her on the hillside. She was found. The helicopter saw the car on a road that didn't belong. Then they dispatched the sheriff's deputies, and the sheriffs impounded the car. When they opened the trunk, they found the owner, Cindy Lee Hudspeth, age 20, dead in the trunk of her car. And that was on February 16th, 1978. Now, I don't know exactly what day they killed her. She'd been missing for at least a week, and but there she is. Anyway, then they stopped working together, and there were no murders for another year. No murders, and Kenny moved to Bellingham, Washington, where he got a job as a security agent for Fred Meyer's grocery stores, and he befriended the women cashiers there and considered, doing the usual kidnapping, rape. But because he's working alone, you can't really do the kidnapping really well. So what you do is you lure women to a home that he was to guard on a part-time basis for his security company. And he lured one 20-year-old and one 27-year-old to this home under the guise he pay $200 an hour to those girls to watch the home so he could go do something else. And then he raped and murdered the girls there, then had to carry their bodies into their car, put them in the back seat, and then drove that car to a park, and then wiped the car down, no fingerprints, and drove away. Except the knucklehead didn't know that, of course, those girls took notes of his name, of his phone number, and what one of the older girl wrote down that they were going to go do a job with Kenny Bianchi, and so the police, when they went into the apartment of the girls, they saw Kenny Bianchi's name, so they went over to him and talked to him and caught him in a couple of lies. Then they went back a second time with a search warrant, and it wasn't long before Ken Bianchi was handcuffed because they did find things that didn't belong to him. He had lots of stolen property in the basement of his home in Bellingham. That was enough to arrest him. And later they put together that his forensics were found in the home where the killing of the two girls were. So his goose was kicked, and it was Ken Bianchi who then implicated his cousin Angelo in the Hillside Stranglers murders in exchange for beating the death penalty, because Washington State has the death penalty, and in California, as you know, they disbanded the death penalty at that time in 1978, 79. There was no death penalty in California, so that was the impetus to how the police solved this crime. You see, they never would have solved this crime if Kenny Bianchi hadn't handed them the gift. Let me show you some photographs of of this long-winded soliloquy that I'm giving you regarding this story, that the police were never going to solve this case. They had to keep waiting for the killers to kill young women because they were never, ever, ever going to solve this case, because this is the fog of war. It's the magic of Hollywood. It's the magic of the Church of Scientology Celebrity Center. It's the magic of Navy intelligence. This is L. Ron Hubbard. This is the forensic team going into the upholstery business belonging to Anthony Bonio after he had been arrested, after his cousin Ken Bianchi. You see the handsome, debonair Ken Bianchi, who is 16 years younger than the older Italian stallion, Angelo Bono. This is Angelo Bono, right? Let me get out of the picture. It's Angelo Bono, and this is Angelo Bono decapitated, as Zoom does, is Angelo Bono. This is the Glendale Police Department, who's really just subcontracted by the Sheriff's Department. They're standing in front of the home where they murdered 10 women inside this home. And that number could actually be 12 or 13 women in here. But this is also where they had 2 runaway teenagers living for 3 months in here who were not killed. So who knows what the total portfolio of crimes here is. In the back of this picture, you'll see that's where the upholstery business was, and that's where the last victim, Cindy Lee Hudsmith, she was getting an estimate for her car when they instead decided to take her into this house and rape her, and then strangulate her and ligature and take her to an abandoned dirt road above Flint Ridge to dump the car with her body in the trunk. This is Colorado Boulevard. This is 703 East Colorado Boulevard address. This home has now been demoed and it's gone, but the rest of the lot is correct, and this gate is still here. And so I just want you to see that this is what we're talking about here, right? So this is here's Angelo was a ladies' man too. It's Angelo Bono with a young woman who he's holding her arm, I think. And as far as I know, nobody got killed here. But there's a photograph of a young woman with Angelo Bono. Certainly, they didn't take pictures of him committing any of his crimes. This is the zone where they picked up most of the girls, is down here. Like I said, on Franklin Avenue, Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard is down from this sign. This sign is up by the obelisk and the Griffith Observatory above Griffith Park. That's where this is. This is where the obelisk is for Los Angeles County, is behind this sign. It's behind this sign. All right. Let's see if there's anything else here worth noting. You'll see this is how the women all end up in the end, right? They end up like this. And kind of a sad sight, but this is what we're talking about. This is where the murders happened. At least 10, possibly 13 murders happened in this home. This is Angelo. He was given life imprisonment, multiple life imprisonment. He did die of a heart attack in prison. They did allow him to get married in prison. He got married to his 4th wife, married 4 times. His last wife married him after he was convicted of murdering 10 women. You tell me what it all means. I don't know. This is the chateau known as the Church of Scientology Celebrity Center. This is where one of the victims, Evelyn Jane King, was last seen alive here at the Church of Scientology. Supposedly she was quitting, but I can't substantiate that. She was quitting the Church of Scientology, and that's when she was murdered, when she was quitting. But again, I'm not suggesting to you that these are Gladio murders. The person who's the most qualified to be Gladio would be this Church of Scientology girl, woman whose name is Jane King. She went by Jane King. She was 28 years old. She was the one, because this is a military operation, the Church of Scientology, for sure. This is military, 100%. And all I'm saying is that most of the girls are teenagers, and you're not going to hire professional soldiers to kill teenagers who have no strategic importance in banking or politics or or Hollywood entertainment. You don't do that. So it's just two amateur guys who were pretty proficient. But I want you to know they put a lot of time and planning into their victims, much more than the media told you. The media just makes it sound like they just pretended to be police officers and picked girls up on Sunset and Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard. That's not a very accurate picture of how they operate. They typically do have a dossier on all the girls that they're going to kidnap, rape, and strangle. All right, so I hope you understand that that's today's video. Hope you appreciate it. That's what I got for you today, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care now. Good night. Bye bye.